I'd watch the practice with none of my friends. I'd turn the dial to ABC to see the creep of the week that Bobby Donald defends. But I'm out of practice.
With your hosts, Keith Varney and... Wrong one.
Out of practice.
Hey, it's me, Mike Indeglio.
Way back in high school, most every night, my mom watched QVC, so I missed the practice. There was no TiVo, what could I do? Wait 15 years, get that, streaming on Hulu. Out of practice.
I'm happy to be here, and you can tell from the smile on Mike's face, he wants to die.
Out of practice.
No, wait, it's Friday, which means it's not Monday.
Out of practice.
And welcome to the Out of Practice podcast, a weekly little podcast in which me and Mike, we discuss David E. Kelley's award-winning series, The Practice. This week, we are up to Season 7, Episode 6, The Telltale Nation. It is good. Everything is Halloween-y kind of right now. It's October. It's very fall, very fun. And you and I were just discussing how terrible we look on camera.
It's not great, but more to the point, Keith, and I'd like to zoom out and be a little more esoteric about it. It struck me as I was waiting for you to safety pee that, often we kind of come into the show moody and have to kind of psych up to because that's just who we are. We're moody individuals. But today, we're both kind of feeling all right, and we were having a nice little gab before the show, and we were talking about some life and some other stuff and laughing and having a good little buddy hang. But this happens on occasion. One of us, today it was you, says, you know what, we should talk about this. We should do this on air. Because we're not comfortable enough to just be. We have to capture it for 4 people who listen on the internet.
No, it's not that. It's not that. I just don't want to waste it,
Right? Because it's wasted if we don't record it and put it on the internet.
Right, for literally no one to listen to.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the internet is our imaginary friend.
I wish you all could see the camera's static, unfortunately. The literal refuse all over the office now because my cat has found the joy of just getting the garbage out of all the garbage cans and bringing it into the room.
We're going to skip filings and subpoenas because, we're recording like 3 days after we did the last episode. So we're just going to move forward. But if you would like to file and subpoena, because moderator Phoenix is on a road trip right now. He is literally going across the country, and we're getting pictures, and it's awesome. But anyway, if somebody would like to let us know what's going on in their road trip, what their office setup looks like, et cetera, how would they do it, Mike?
Well, Keith, you can always get a hold of us by writing an email to outofpracticepodcast@gmail.com. Check us out on the Facebook or the Instagram @outofpracticepodcast. We'd love to hear from you. We appreciate those who write in, those who tag us and tell us to promote on such and such on Instagram or send us bot porn. Always appreciate you reaching out.
I've appreciated that for about 20 years. Yeah.
Hey, and if you want,
doesn't happen nearly as much as it used to.
If listening to the podcast wasn't enough of an exercise in futility, heck, it takes the extra second to go the full nonsensical route and leave us a rating or a review. We've got a few, and we've had to fake a few, but regardless, you could do us a solid by doing so, and also give us a like up on the YouTube. Hey, maybe even reach out to Phoenix Cage. He needs somebody to talk to. He on his cross-country tour. And
that's true.
Yeah, I think that's it. What are we doing now?
Okay. We are, you know what we're going to do now? We are going to hop back into the time machine.
Smart.
We've done, we've let you have a window into our life in this very live moment. We got a live cam of Mike's life. Let us talk about our lives back in the day, specifically on November 10th, the year 2002. Answer me this. What were you doing?
This day in the basement.
Keith, interestingly, you've disappeared in this shot.
Yeah, apparently I hate that shot.
I don't know why.
I mean, I'm technically still there. I just look like a chuckling idiot next to Rebecca.
I don't know why you've disappeared, and I'm furiously scampering behind the scenes to bring you back into the fold of the show.
In the spaceship that you run this podcast from.
Yes, it's behind. I'm seated directly behind Shatner.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to keep bringing that up because I think it's just glorious.
And I don't think we necessarily need to see me. I don't think it. Oh, there I am.
There he is.
Hey, what's up, me?
Keith, using that photographer's rule of thirds. There he is in the upper third of the shot. It's really well done, Keith.
It probably has more to do with the fact that the power cable keeps pulling my my camera. But whatever. Rule of thirds.
Keith,
Let's
speaking
go with
of
that.
the rule of thirds, someone I know recently told me that you no longer need a professional headshot photographer to take a professional headshot. But Keith, at any time in your life, did you actually use a professional headshot?
I'm sorry, what? Hey, on the YouTubes, they do an auto captions. I would love to see what they're going to do with that sentence.
I didn't even tell you I went to my first concert back from the pandemic last night.
Oh yeah, what was it?
I went to Jen's live show. So I was like one of the first back in a theater early on when she did Into the Woods. Last night I went to the Met in Philadelphia to see a band called Need to Breathe. They're sort of this just all happened today. A Southern rock band, really cool. There was probably
they the sister band with State the Obvious.
Mm-hmm. And what was a little concerning is that outside you either had to be fully vaccinated, right? So you had to. There was a line for those who had their vaccination card, and we were just zipping right in.
Right.
Or a company was more than happy to charge you $50 for a rapid test right in the second line. You could pay $50, get a rapid test.
Utter nonsense.
Utter nonsense, and show that you were negative, then still go in. I will say that mask compliance inside, even for the fully vaccinated, was pretty high.
Mm-hmm.
But the line for $50 antigen tests to get into a concert was staggeringly large. So,
meaning those people didn't get vaxxed.
Meaning there's a huge population of like 20. This band particularly has a wide age demographic from like young teens, because they also are like sort of in the Christian rock universe, sort of. So they've got that sort of younger age, like hands in the air type people versus like older people like me who just like the jams. Regardless, there's and all of those people were represented in that antigen line. It was, it gave me pause for sure. But regardless, there's something about the live music experience. Yes. Don't get me wrong. As far as just like sharing that experience with people. However, the feeling of a live rock show with like the sub bass that's just like rattling your rib cage, and seeing live performers just like giving their everything is something that cannot be replicated. I think we've talked about it before, and it was special to feel that little bit of normalcy.
Yeah. Live is important. And, but get vaccinated.
Yeah.
People. I have nothing else to say. Nobody listening to this isn't vaccinated. We only have about 2 listeners, but they're smart.
Well, on those lines, I got some more clarity. Sorry, we're all over the place today. And by we, I mean me. I got some more clarity on this cruise gig I'm doing. So you have to be vaccinated. So full cast crew and the passengers have to be vaccinated. Makes sense.
Right.
You also have to display a negative antigen or PCR test no more than 72 hours prior to boarding. And then upon boarding, every passenger and every person will be given a secondary test. So you will be double tested and have to be vaccinated. So that's pretty good. Plus no interaction with the audience, no handshakes, no meet and greets, no selling CDs, none of that.
Well, I mean, that's important. I mean, especially on a on a cruise because you're trapped there, and like the nightmare scenario for the cruises is to have an outbreak on a cruise again.
And every port is subject
industry.
to change, right? So we're supposed to be stopping at these 7 places, but that's subject to change day of if the port has any sort of thing.
Yep.
It really does beg the question ultimately, why would you go on a cruise? Nothing is set. You can't really do anything. Why would you do it? But I'll report back when I get back.
I'll tell you why. To see Mike and Deglio sing Schmersy Schmoys. That's why you go on a cruise.
This is the Schmersy Tenors. So, Keith, there's only about 5 Schmersy Boys songs. I get to sing some Bruce Springsteen. We get to do some opera. We do an opera rock medley. Really, some special things.
Yeah, I mean, I'm technically a Jersey tenor. Do you need a fat guy who sings high?
As a matter of fact, Keith, I was going to talk to you about this another time. We are looking for a guy to play us the one track that is like made for Keith. You want to travel the world with me, buddy?
Yeah, well, it's hard enough to get me to go upstairs, but we'll work on it.
Keith, I want to see your first headshot.
All right, well, but you have to go first, unless you have something special.
No. I'm just going to piggyback on yours and show my headshot again.
Okay. All right, cool. So, so November 10th, the year 2002. Remember what we were doing? We were in the basement.
I was about to turn 22.
Right, and I was 22? Yeah, I was 22 at this point. So I was emailing back and forth with my folks, realizing that, hey, I've been in the city a couple months, going to start going on auditions. I desperately need a real headshot. And so I had to go and on film with film and negatives and all those things in full black and white into a studio to get my first headshot taken. Oh, my Lord, did I not know what the hell I was doing. In fact, that turtleneck, I went in there with like a 10-year-old turtleneck. There's actually a clothespin holding the back of it closed. I didn't bring any clothes that were appropriate. I brought nothing.
So
but what
this doesn't shout Eastman School of Music. To me, this shouts late 50s avant-garde French mime theater.
Well, I basically haven't changed a great deal. My hair's crept back a little bit, but I feel like I could be in my late 50s today and in that picture.
Vincent Price?
Vincent Price.
I've used that joke before. But, folks, look on the left of your screen and look at these fine, aged young men and wonder, how did these handsome, attractive youthful podcasters begin? And now you know. This is the Out of Practice podcast from 22 years ago on your right, and then the current day on your left. I think we did okay.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a little less of you, pretty much the same amount of me, except for a little less there, and you're a little more gray. So they're pretty much
a little, some would say
it's it's not terrible. And I will say that I found out in my emails that who paid for these headshots? My parents helped me pay for these headshots.
Yeah. No shit.
So thanks, Mom and Dad. You are welcome to as many of the hard copy printouts of those headshots. You could actually.
Now, Keith, some would say that since your parents paid for this headshot, that means they can take a picture of you anytime they want. Now,
they can have that picture as many times as they want.
Okay.
Actually, you know what? I was those, because I printed a gazillion of them, and then didn't go on hardly any auditions, and not that would have helped me in the first place. But I let me see if I can find it. I ended up starting to use those headshots for Pictionary because the backs were blank, so I would use like a stack of them for Pictionary, and then I finally gave up and recycled them, and let me see where I just by happenstance walked by my building one day. There's a picture of it somewhere. Whatever. I'll say, oh, here it is, and you definitely can't see, but this is my headshot in the recycling outside of the building that I did, that I just recycled them. Hold on. We're going to get it in focus.
Absolutely insane.
There on the streets of New York City are my recycled headshots. Pretty ridiculous. So there I was. It was uncomfortable. I hated it so much. I have not grown to like it anymore. Now I'm out of focus. We have a lot of camera drama this episode.
Guys, it's TGI Friday. Actually, it's Tuesday for you listening. Well, who knows when it is? It could be 2030 for all I know.
Who knows? But I hate headshots. I hate them so much. I find them very uncomfortable. I cannot look natural. I'm not happy to have them taken. I don't like this business going on. So but we all had to do it, and I think I paid $600 to get that, plus whatever it costs to print them on hard copy things. And I think I've printed a headshot twice in the last 6 years. So there you go. So do you have anything else, or are you just going to piggyback? You're going to recycle, reduce, reuse, recycle your headshot from last week?
I'm trying so hard to remember what I did on my 22nd birthday. I'm trying so hard to remember. I was living in Harlem. I was in Harlem.
Uh-huh.
Harlem. I'm sure I went out to dinner with my girlfriend and buddy Jay at the time. Yeah, that's about it. I was turning 22, guys. Youth. Youth.
Youth.
But Keith, we should say as we get into this day in the world, this is cool. Actually, I'll talk about it later. I'll make a note to bring this up later.
Yeah, sure you will. All right. Well, then let us take this opportunity before Mike forgets what he was going to talk about to talk about.
It's time for the Out of Practice Podcast's This Day in the World. The greatest hits, the biggest movies, headlines from Vermont, essential sports updates.
Look a lot like my
and for
headshot
some
still.
inexplicable reason, the weather from 20 years ago. Now
Oh, wait,
back
you're
to
gone
Keith and
again.
Mike.
Why is that?
You wanted to record on a weird day, and you were not prepped for this disaster that
I'm
we're
not
doing
prepped
right
for
now.
why your NDI camera has got disappeared from all the. Oh man.
I don't know. I wasn't interested.
Oh,
but,
you know what it is, Keith? Because I did live cat cam, it has screwed up the whole NDI everything.
Oh, that's going to be fun for our 17 different shots as we move forward.
Yeah.
But while you're sorting that out,
Yeah, talk to me.
I will talk about a couple of things were dominating the world at this point. One of them was, of course, Eminem, who not only had the top song "Lose Yourself" for the second week in a row, he had the top movie, as 8 Mile took over the top of the movie charts, pulling in $51 million. Now, the other thing dominating the world was our good buddy George W. Bush was, trying to invade half of the rest of the world, and we were deeply into the run-up to the war in Iraq. And the cover of the Burlington Free Press talked about... headline was, "War in Iraq would be short." So, yeah, that turned out to be prescient. So that was definitely what was going on. And because I've already prepped for next week, my basement is going to be about the run-up to the war in Iraq, which at this point was if you remember, there was a huge whole countrywide argument about whether or not we should go to war with Iraq and whether or not our pretexts for it were real or imagined. And we all knew what happened there. And I have to figure out when, because I have pictures I took from. There's a big march through Manhattan. I have to figure out when those were. I'll find them. Maybe you know what? Maybe for basement next week, I'll find those pictures. I think it was about this time. So so that's what was going on. Now that you've got that finally tuned in, we're gonna move on and go to another one you don't have yet in a segment we call.
It's time for Sports Ball.
The New York Giants beat the Vikings 27-20 in the Hubert Humphrey Metrodome, led by Kerry Collins' 300 yards and 2 touchdowns over the air. Tiki Barber rushed for 127 yards and another touchdown. Meanwhile, the Eagles got pounded by Peyton Manning and the Colts at Veterans Stadium. Eli's brother went 18 for 23 for 318 and 3 touchdowns. Yeah. Okay. Mike's like, Bail, get me out of here. What's happening? Wait, where is it? Where is it?
I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
It's time to talk about the damn episode.
Okay, folks, we are talking about The Practice, Season 7, Episode 6, The Telltale Nation. It was written, again, by David E. Kelley. David E. Kelley has firmly retaken the reins of Season 7 after being a bit of an absent father for Season 6. And it was directed by veteran director Dwayne Clark, who last directed Eyewitness. Which leaves us with only one thing to talk about before we listen to the episode, which, by the way, as far as we can tell, it looks like The Practice is not going to be leaving Hulu. We're basing this on not having the warning saying it's expiring and literally nothing else. So we are, this music sounds much more confident than we are, but we're certainly hoping that perhaps they were just having a negotiation, which is why it looked like it was leaving. So, hooray for that. Now let's do this.
You know, Keith, it's funny. The first new email we got in months was just because viewers were like, where's the show going?
Is this what
Right?
happens to
Now we don't
women
even
when
have
they
that.
serve your penis?
It's just still on Hulu.
What does
What?
think's gonna happen?
You know, what if he would have drank the curdled milk? Then what would have happened?
Oh, I love it, Keith, when just through random happenstance, the time period on the show matches the time period we're watching it in. So it doesn't feel like we're getting in a time machine to watch the show. It feels like it's airing right now. It's Halloween there.
it
It's
sure
Halloween
does.
here. Oh, so nice. Although I'm not 22. 22-year-old me didn't have to pee 3 times every night. Keith, I see the recycle symbol there in the middle on top of a spider. So it sounds like we're getting into our comfortable, familiar seat of recycling plot devices from previous seasons. Could this one be about, I don't know, but poisonous spiders? I don't remember a plot about poisonous spiders. I do remember plots about the government discarding harmful chemicals in people's playgrounds to make them sick. And so this week, we find out that a government facility that is running tests on spiders, is running genetic tests on spiders.
Is it Spider-Man?
Instead of discarding, euthanizing those spiders, they are releasing them into the wild. And one of them bit a child in the sandbox of their home. And now a client is suing this facility because their child developed gifts.
Great power and great responsibility.
Or perhaps got sick and died. One of those two, not sure. One fits more with this genre.
Look, I put you to the task this season of coming up with shark jumping episodes, and goddamn, have you pitched a shark jumping episode?
But wait, there's more. Because also, you'll recall, they have to be sexy pitches. Actually, I don't think the sexy had to be in this season. It's just evolved. We're recycling that from last season.
Every season everything has been sexy since like season 2. I mean, look at this.
And here's the thing. The guest, this one I can say confidently, Keith, because I saw it in the slate. We're going to get a arc in this episode, more than just a passing scene or two. I mean, we're going to get a full-fledged arc for good friend of the show, Ray Abruzzo, and just saying the words Ray Abruzzo is sexy as hell.
Ooh, if you say it 3 times, he'll show up.
Yeah, although then he murders you, which is less sexy.
It depends on how they do it. I mean, have you seen, what's that one? The Christian Bale one.
I don't know what you're talking about.
No, when he plays this, they made a musical out of it.
American Psycho.
American Psycho.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Let's face it. It was a serial killer. It's a good-looking dude.
Sexy.
All right. let's move forward. Goddamn, we're a mess. And hop over to your podcasting service of choice and listen to us. Listen to this episode. We will see you back on the YouTubes for the Oopsies.
And we are back, baby.
We are indeed. We have watched The Practice Season 7, Episode 6, The Telltale Nation. Lots to talk about, but before we do, just in case you don't remember from 10 seconds ago, let's give you 30 seconds of a recap entitled
2, 3, 4. Mike has 30 seconds to remember what just happened on the show. Segment.
Hey, this guy's pissed, everybody, because his friend made him go see this priest who then molested him, and so he says, you got to pay me money. And people are like, yeah, but should he be at fault? Because he was also a victim. But guess what? The jury, in this case at least, says, yes, he should. And so he gets $1 million. But it makes Bobby think, you know what? I think I need to leave the church. It's much more nuanced than that, trust me. On the other end of the spectrum, there's some loud sex noises, and then Jamie almost instigates a serial murderer.
Yeah. Okay, sure. Now, do it again.
Oh, shit!
But faster.
Oh, no!
In a segment we call Surprise Coopsy.
Oh no, I my face is everything is fucked up here. Guys, I haven't prepared this. I'm very nervous because there are a lot of landmines that could just blow up on me here. Are victims at fault? Can victims be blamed? That's how I want to start. Can victims be blamed? Oh no. Bobby has crisis of faith. Black Widow returns.
Let me give you one here in response.
Okay.
Everything is fucked. Mike is too scared of landmines. This did not go well.
Yeah, well, that works for me. Yeah.
Okay,
You know what?
well,
Let's go right to this.
on that amazing note,
Ladies and gentlemen, the Out of Practice podcast, in unofficial, unsolicited, unfactual association with David
You know, I had so
Kelly
many ones that went well,
Productions,
Keith. I get one
proudly
shitty week.
present
you totally do. You totally do.
the Oopsies! Celebrating excellence in acting good, lawyering good, guesting good, and being Tom Brady. Not to mention, this is where we rate the episode and stuff. Now, here are your hosts, Keith and Mike.
What the hell are the Oopsies?
Well, Jackie, they're a fake awards show that we should not be nominated for any of on this particular episode, except for this bumper. Just let it wash over you. So, MVL, Mr. Indeglio.
I'm preparing. My brother hired me to run a trivia to host a trivia at this big educational conference this weekend.
Oh.
And I foolishly made the assumption that by being hired to host something, it had been already created.
Aha.
And it is now Friday, and I'm being slowly educated that I now have to build a scalable trivia to last 3 hours for up to 100 people, and I have about 24 hours to do it now.
And you have to do trivia questions and such, or
Yeah. Yes.
oh, that's not the same thing as that's actually
No.
not hosting.
No.
That's
no.
creating the entire.
Yeah. The rate would
thing.
have been different.
I would imagine. Yeah.
So sorry if my entire mood and demeanor has shifted radically in the last 11 seconds.
Has
that is
shifted
why.
from shitty to shittier.
No, mixed with just that hint of panic that I used to enjoy in my young 20s, because people who perform and are like improvisational at their core generally are motivated and enjoy the improvisational nature of life. I found that as I get older, I enjoy it much and much less.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
But
You
I
need
can
to
tell you
improvise an MVL.
Yeah. This is tough. It's tough because we were really on the wrong side of the case here. Both fronts, to be honest with you. But I guess we won. I guess Eugene gets the nod for being sort of really not on board personally with what we're going for, but also getting $1.1 million for our client and for our firm. And Bobby clearly was very upset in the beginning. We clearly were going through some fiscal challenges. So this accomplishes both a win legally and also fiscally for the office. So I guess we got to start there.
Yeah, yes. I mean, certainly based on results. I mean, for sure. Or, you could also say that Jamie helped somebody get away with murder. So both of our results were very successful and, wrong. I think I'm not going to be results-based today because I think the verdict that the jury gave in Eleanor and Eugene's case strained credulity. I don't buy it. What I do buy is the argument made by John Franklin, the defendant's lawyer played by Arya Gross. So that's where I'm going. But yeah, it was not.
So
a
its
great
value, though, in most valuable lawyer, the value there you think is for precedent, in that it was entered into the record, that argument.
Yeah, the value is the points that he made. Even if, because I feel like he would have had the winning case in real life. It was only on television that the plot needed him to lose.
I would say that as a whole, we'll talk about it later, with the exception of the testimony by the victims in this case, plural, the whole episode was very for TV.
Well, yes. Although we'll
tried
talk about
to
it later.
distill a lot of gigantic, multi-layered issues into a very consumable, which that's its task, right? I mean, it did.
Yeah. I think I liked Bobby's story more than you did, but we're not there yet because I'll tell you where we are. We are at Everybody Dance.
Already famous cause you've been on TV, getting a paycheck. Or the first entry on your IMDb. Way to go. But you're the best guest actor. You are the best guest actor. You are the best guest actor on the episode.
Speaking of, it was nice to see a return of Bobby's priest, who we always enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
It was nice to see our returning guest actor, who was a rabbi once, and in his new life is an attorney.
Right.
But I think that this week we shouted it out at the top of the episode. I think that the plaintiff in this case was complicated and had the Herculean task, the Zeusian task, if you will, of humanizing, of bringing through, a performance, the plight of a really specific and real group of victims and people, not just those affected by the Catholic Church, but of sort of sexual abuse in totality. And I thought he did a great job, and so I believe he should be awarded.
And he we are speaking of course, is Tim Quill, who I completely agree. I thought he did a tremendous job with a very difficult ask, especially as a guest actor coming in and having to do that. So definitely congratulations, Tim Quill. You are an OOPSY winner. You didn't expect to be. I bet when you began your career as an actor, you didn't ever even think you were going to win an OOPSY. But here you are, winning one. Now it is time for, now that Mike is finally, no, not finally, he's working on it.
You killed your podiatrist or blew the case, but you let a single tear run down your face. You're the best actor on the show. Wow.
If you didn't listen to the episode, you should have. Everybody was really knocking it out of the park today. Steve Harris, shout out for just like not only some great scenes, but also some great scenes where he didn't say anything. I mean, he is just a goddamn master. But yes. I want to, it brings me joy to bring things back to Dylan McDermott. For the reason I said to Keith during the episode is that I feel like the writing team lets Bobby down on so many levels so often. They've really pigeonholed him into like a few specific beats over the past 2-3 seasons. And we almost forget that he's like a nuanced human being. And, you know, it's hard for me, and I think you would agree, Keith, it's hard for me sometimes not to wear my opinions, not let them affect my personal opinions on a specific topic to affect, like, I find it almost like, prior to this episode, I would have found it somewhat straining credulity, as you said, that Bobby is so Catholic, right? I guess because in my experience, in my life, I don't have a lot of like fervently religious people in my circle that are legit that devout. I'm not scoffing at it. I'm saying I just don't have that experience. And so Jimmy, I buy. I don't know that he's devout. I know he's very dedicated, but we've discussed it before. Bobby has a little bit, but not a ton. Anyway, and it was really heavy-handed at times this episode, but at no times do I feel like it was too much. Dylan made me believe that not only was he very committed to his faith, but he was struggling mightily. That the points Eugene raised and the cards that were dealt in front of him made him struggle. And then not only struggle, and I think something editorially what the episode is saying is that internal struggle at some point isn't enough. That we, the trickle-down people, take some responsibility for the institutions, for the behavior of the institutions we are a part of. And Bobby manifests that by saying, I can't be a part of this anymore. I don't know what the answer is, but until there's at least, well, Bobby does give an answer. He asks for full accountability and culpability for those perpetrators. And that might be an incredibly unattainable task, but Bobby sets some limits. At least he takes that first step, right? He says, I'm out until some sort of change. And I think that is, once again, a huge swing for David E. Kelley to take for a character to happen in one episode. But I think they stuck that landing for the Bobby arc for sure. I know you thought I was implying I didn't enjoy it. I actually did quite a bit. And Dylan brings that home. And you got to remember, like I said, they often kind of shortchange Bobby as far as nuance goes. But every time they decide to write it into an episode, Dylan's able to take stock Bobby and infuse it with whatever the thing at the moment is. And this episode I thought was sort of a masterclass, especially that last scene, as you mentioned. The struggle was real. It wasn't just that Bobby was crying, it's that he was struggling. And that's difficult to watch, but easy to enjoy. And that's my long-winded way of saying Dylan McDermott.
Yeah. No, I for sure. I think this is some of Dylan's best work on the show. And, you know, and this it's sort of like a half tires conversation here, but I've asked many times on this show, why do we like Bobby? Right? We're being asked as an audience to get behind this character, and that the whole show is driven by Bobby, and we're supposed to be rooting for him and like him. And he's had some real struggles with likability, and I've found myself not really rooting for him as much as one would expect on the show. But this episode, this arc, gives me a reason to like Bobby. I really, really liked his struggle here. I understood his struggle, and I liked the fact that he stood up and did what he considered, and frankly, I consider the right thing. And even against his own wishes, what he would like to have happen. And, this gave him some moral integrity and some backbone that I haven't always seen. And I really liked this for Bobby, as well as for Dylan. So it's a little bit of a tires conversation. But yes, obviously Dylan crushed it. We'll talk more about the big picture in the tires. But first, we have to move on to someone with no integrity because he's a garbage person. I've never even met him.
The Tom Brady Award for being Tom Brady.
Keith, I've given you a challenge every week this season thus far. Some really Photoshop epic. You got to do a lot. So I'm going to make it easy for you this week. I just want to see a picture of a confessional in a church. Mm-hmm. And it's implied that Tom Brady's in there.
Okay.
We think potentially with a priest, potentially with a shark, because all we're going to see is the confessional with blood pouring through the seams. And we don't know what's happening on the inside. There's a lot to be left to the imagination. So we're just going to call it Shark. I don't know how.
How about Bloody Confessional Tom Brady?
That's it.
Congratulations to Bloody Confessional Tom Brady as the winner of the Tom Brady Award for being Tom Brady. All right.
Speaking
of
jumping the shark, that segment. Woo!
Let's get to it.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to announce how many spare tires this episode gets.
So, listen, guys. I know the dynamic is that I go first, and Keith watches the episodes and prepares a little bit for this segment. I've got a lot of thoughts, and a lot of them are jumbled, and so I want to let you go first, Keith, because I think there's some important points we should hit here.
Okay.
So I think since you're probably a little bit better prepared, I'm gonna let you go first.
That is so untrue, but let's roll with it. There's a
silence.
Lot, right? I know. There is a lot here that I like. I really like David E. Kelley taking on this topic. It was incredibly relevant back in 2002. It is still incredibly relevant. We are still wrestling with these things. And I think it's very important to talk about. I think these discussions about, what is your culpability with the institutions that you support, either financially or even through attendance, right? What is your culpability? If I'm a Giants fan, and the Giants as an institution do something shitty and I'm still buying the jersey, what's my level of culpability there? And I think that's a really interesting thing to debate. I found there's actually an article in the New York Times about this exact episode, leading up to it, knowing that they were going to start to address this topic and how complicated it was. And they actually reached out to the president of the Catholic League, which monitors media representation of the church. And he said that he has had numerous issues with David E. Kelley in the past and has not seen this episode. But in theory, he said he had no problem with a show that depicted a Catholic layman troubled by the church's handling of the scandal. Quote, if a Catholic isn't troubled by this issue, he or she isn't a good Catholic. So, of course, he did not endorse Catholics leaving the church. Anyway, so I thought that part of this was great. I really liked the outcome. I thought, I thought Eugene's speech was great. I thought it was incredibly well articulated, incredibly well put. I thought it was much more effective than Lindsay's. Lindsay's felt a little bit more unfair, whereas everything Eugene said felt really fair to me. And I really liked that. So, the case of the victims suing each other, well, I disagree with the outcome, and I disagree with that being allowed. I understand it as a story point, because at this point, getting retribution, getting justice from the priest or from the church in general was very difficult and took a long time. And I can understand, as a person, you want somebody to take some accountability for this, and it's sort of a tragedy. That case was tragic because you had two victims fighting each other because they couldn't get accountability from the people who were really dealing with it. So it wasn't necessarily a good guy, bad thing. It was a tragic, sad thing that understandably happens. And it's tough. It's tough, but I don't mind that story being told. And I thought this show's point of view, even though our heroes were on the wrong side of it, I don't think the show's point of view was necessarily on the side of the plaintiff there. So that was I was on board with that, and I thought it was handled relatively deftly with compassion for all of that. So now it's time to get to our most favorite. There are two things that the practice loves, right? Serial killers. Everybody, we're obsessed with serial killers. That's what we do on the show. We do serial killers. But you know what we do that we love even as much as serial killers? Black Widows. And in this episode, we got both. So half of all clients seen on the practice are either a serial killer or a Black Widow. And as I've said so many times, with the twisty twist, with the serial killer, with the Black Widow, if this was the only one, cool. That's fun. That's interesting. Cool. But it's the 15th version of both. At least Bobby wasn't sleeping with this one, even though he slept with two others. Or wanted to, at least.
There you go.
Certainly had emotional affairs with two other Black Widows. God, I mean, like, I get you want to have a lighter, a lighter B story to go along with this heavy stuff, but oh my goodness. It's not just that they stole the card from Ally McBeal. They never took the card down from season 1 of The Practice. Take the card down. It has been played. So I need to give tires, and I will stop talking. You know what? I'm feeling generous because I really appreciate David E. Kelley going out on a limb here and telling the story and giving this to Bobby. So I'm going to disregard the Black Widow nonsense. Because I'm just going to pretend it wasn't a part of it, and I'm going to give this episode 8.43 spare tires.
Generous
Mr. Indeglio, who you have an interesting perspective on this because you were specifically raised Catholic.
Yeah, but I was never devout in any way.
But you were raised in the church.
I was, and I was blessed in having, in my experience, even when I worked and sung with the Methodist Church, of just really compassionate and wonderful spiritual priests and ministers. So, granted, they're not all monsters argument is I've lived that and I understand that and I understand it. Now, I think what this episode did, we talked about courage a little bit in the writer's room and on David E. Kelley's part, and I think you nailed it. I think what I appreciate most is that he told the story, and it's a complicated story, and had a strong viewpoint, and did the complete antithesis of me during the episode and did not attempt to tread lightly, said what he had to say, attempted to pose both sides-ish, not really both sides, but attempted to use the well-trod excuse of those in the institution in that you can't overlook the good we've done, and which tacitly implies that they will never explicitly say it excuses that behavior, but it sort of makes up for. It is, it's like, well, let's look over here instead of looking at the ugly boogaboo. And I like that David E. Kelley calls it. And I like that, and because he's done this before, but because David E. Kelley knows he can't have a ruling of a case that is going to solve the problem, what I think, and subtlety is not their strong suit, obviously, but what I think is really kind of deftly handled here is that they set the cards up to as like, here's the issue. Let's have a kind of almost ridiculous view of it, which is we have one victim who is suing another victim because he didn't warn him going in. And you're like, well, that's a lot to expect of somebody. But then using the Bobby storyline, they trickle that down to what is David E. Kelley really trying to say, which is like, look, you as members of this institution also share that responsibility. Maybe you don't owe $1 million, but you definitely owe a little introspection at the very least. And so
I think you do owe $1 million, but yes.
Well, but instead of giving that $1 million in the courtroom, you're taking it out of the coffer. You know what I'm saying? Right. Your ongoing contribution, if you will. And I think that is such a, for such a complicated issue, is such a skilled, sleight of hand, perfectly placed plotting. The pacing was very good. Having the arguments between Bobby and Eugene friends, showing that it's an issue that comes home with you, then bringing it to Lindsay and how it affects parents. All the beats might not be perfect. The Lindsay thing might have been a little shorthanded, but all said, really expertly done issue episode of The Practice. In the pantheon of Jimmy's death row case, I don't know, but for this season, I'd say that. So I enjoyed it, and for let alone just for what it did for Bobby as a character for us. Yeah. Important, really well done, expertly acted across the board. Now we get to the B case that you so lovingly forgave. My problem is not with the recycling of the plot. I've come to know it. This is the question here, as we've dealt with in a few other things. We've dealt with it in actual plots with the grape jelly and with the what was the other Occam's razors thing for no reason.
Oh God, any number of things. Yeah.
My problem here is from a zoomed out perspective. Why? Not why recycle it. Why does she have to be a serial killer? Why does she have to be a Black Widow? And then Jamie like almost calls her on it twice, but then just ends up just like walking away and letting her get away. Like, what do we take from that?
Right.
It serves zero purpose unless it's just supposed to be Halloween-y. That's the only grace I can give it, is that it's like, Halloween-y. But they didn't even just recycle the plot line. They then recycled the resolution of Lindsay's case. It's the same thing, except they took Lindsay's very seriously, and this one they were like, no, it's cool. We're not even going to investigate, which is like weird also.
Right.
Yeah. So I really, it really was a waste. And like, it doesn't further Jamie along. The brass balls almost seem stupid. Like, if you're not going to, so if you're going to make a statement, have Jamie go to the DA's office and do what they should have done. Right.
Do it anonymously. Yeah.
For
we've talked about this before.
For an A case that solidly had something to say, this felt they had completely nothing to say.
Yeah.
My other slight nit to pick is they were so close to nailing the A case 100%. The one thing I don't like you said, the resolution strained credulity that a jury would do that. I just don't feel that they would. And then have Oh, and now his friend is gonna sue him, which they foreshadowed so hard when Eleanor, I think, or was it Eugene, said, "We got to be careful because a slippery slope turns into a steep cliff very quickly." We're not stupid. We get the point of why. Oh, look, you got your $1 million, but look, now aren't you just as responsible? Like, we already are doing that in the case. Wouldn't it have made more sense to have them lose, right? Like, the victim is not to blame here, but then the Bobby resolution brings it full circle by saying, but that doesn't mean it can't trickle down and you can't look inside and make and do something about it, right? Which is a much more effective, would have been a tighter episode if we were writing it. They didn't need the B case at all. No. It's a cancer. That's dramatic. I would have said this is close to a 9.0 Tires episode.
Yeah.
Maybe more. I have to ding it. I can't ding it. I'm going to say 8.15. So still pretty up there. Should net pretty well.
Okay. Well, there you are. We have our tires. And before I go to our Easter egg, let me just provide a little bit more context from David E. Kelley on this very episode.
Oh, great.
He said he was convinced he could not follow the standard formula of walking the line to steer clear of controversy, presenting, as he said in an interview, the arguments of two different sides to provide balance. With this issue, Mr. Kelley said, there is no balance, it's just an atrocity. Agreed.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's take a look at that Easter egg. Shouldn't be that hard to figure out.
Looks like a recycled Black Widow to me, Keith. I don't even know that I have to do anything special in post.
No, it's there. I did it all for you. And you can tell how recycled it was because there's a million Black Widows, because there's a million. It's not just recycled once. This thing is perma-use. You use it over and over and over and over again.
Oh, I hope it's the last time we see it.
And speaking of things that we do over and over and over and over again, we tell you how to email us, how to contact us. You can find us on email at outofpracticepodcast@gmail.com, on Facebook and Instagram at outofpracticepodcast. I'll tell you what people are not doing over and over and over again. They're not leaving us ratings and reviews and joining the jury. The poor jury's been sequestered for so long. We need some fresh blood. Leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or any other service of your choice. But you know who is always fresh to us? Our founding sponsors, Jorge Novoa, Cloud Lover 69, Leanne Wrights, Jennifer Masanova, and Kari Kuhn.
Did you know that you can recycle your donation to us over and over and over again by clicking on the link to leave us a monthly contribution? It helps us produce the show each and every week. Hey, you only want to give us a couple dollars one time? You can do that too. You can find both of those links in your show notes. You can also help us out by liking, subscribing, hitting the bell notification, or watching our other more popular show about Keith Star Trek toys. Yeah. Whatever you decide to do, I need you to look at your best friend and apologize for not ensuring that they shoot off some laser sounds.
Apologize because you made sure they didn't, or you didn't make sure they sent laser sounds?
You used to let me just go and do it and not have to worry about, like, if I was saying anything coherent, all right? But now you critique it every week and it's making me very anxious.
Now
and
I'm
going to make you start doing it.
Think through the logic of the laser sounds. Well, if much
logic,
like...
I think about it the split second before my lips start flapping, okay? There's no thing. Usually I'd come up... But now this one's about sexual abuse, Keith. That's what the topic of the episode is. I usually try to link it to the topic. What? I had nothing. What was I going to say? I've already screwed myself. I've already got to listen to this 4 times to make sure I didn't say something that I'm going to have to cut out of the episode because one of the two of us is going to decide to do it. All right.
Well, folks, do you want to make your friend fire off some laser sounds? Question the logic in his laser sounds. We will see it.
You know what? Why don't you find yourself a radioactive spider whose venom is actually laser sounds?
There you go. Laser sounds.